This is Will Faber from Art to Ride, and I'm here in Mexico today in Guadalajara. We're at the La Hípica Center, which was built for the Pan American Games. And I'm working with one of our students, Sergio, who's also a trainer here in the area. This is the first day of the clinic, and you'll see him develop over 3 days. Today we're working with a Frisian cross that Sergio has had in training. He thinks the horse has had quite a rough start in life somewhere. Its mouth is extremely rigid and dead feeling. It has scarring all underneath its chin and underneath its belly. So it's been a challenge for him to get the horse to soften. So that's going to be our goal in the lesson today. So he's trying on his own here. The horse has never done this before. He's trying to learn how to maintain consistent contact with the horse, which is the most important thing to getting horses to stretch, really, is that you can differentiate between just a little bit of contact and a whole lot of contact where you're trying to pull the horse's head down. Now you see, as we see the horse trot off here, he's very inconsistent in the bridle, braces himself in a very hollow position, holding the neck too high and hollow through the back. And he's relaxing the reins and just trying to get him to go forward now. But I want you to watch the stride now, and we'll compare it to what we see later on. You see in the horse, in these photographs here, notice that the trot looks kind of stabby in the front and kind of like he's dragging his back end along. Take a look at then again here as it comes around to the open space. And you can see that there isn't much movement in the hock of the horse. He's just not really covering much ground, and certainly you could not call his back engaged at all. You can quite clearly see how hollow he is. You can see there's a bit of a dip behind the saddle there, which tells us that the horse has been going hollow for a long time. It has never been correctly developed over its back. So he's just trying to get the horse to move forward. Right now I'm having him just relax the reins and get him used to the idea of just letting go of the reins and sending the horse forward from his legs. This is the first principle that we have to apply here. We have to get the horse to respond to the leg before we can ever get it to respond to the hand. And even horses that are running away, people make the mistake of thinking that they're running so they don't put their legs on them, when in fact horses that run away are not responding to the leg, they're just running away. Or very nervous type horses that we see, they're not really responding to the leg, they're just running away from the pain or the misery, whatever, so they're staying in a very agitated state. So I've gotten on the horse here, and I'm explaining to him, and I'm going to try to show him and teach the horse a little bit more about what we're supposed to do. So once again, what you see me doing here, when you see me taking my hands rather high and my hands out to the side like this, is I'm just getting contact with the mouth of the horse so that I can maintain a consistent contact. It doesn't take much more than the weight of the rein for the horse to try to find how he can get out of that contact. So they'll pull their heads up, they'll pull their heads down. So what I'm doing when you see my hands go up and down is simply not letting the horse come off the bridle, but I'm not forcing or holding any contact against the mouth, more than just slightly more than the weight of the rein. So when you see my hands going back and forth a little bit, I'm not seesawing on the mouth of the horse. The horse is trying to evade the contact. He's pulling his head from side to side, looking for a way to get out of that little bit of contact with the bridle. And I'm simply following him back and forth until I can maintain a consistent contact. So eventually the horse will begin to want to seek that open door once it finds it. So in the beginning, that's all it's doing, and the horse is just looking for where that contact is and what he can do with it to evade it. The beauty of the classical system is as we let him, as he finds the open door downwards, in other words, whenever he starts to seek forward and down, I will give the rein to the weight of the rein, because that's the answer that I want. So what I'm experiencing here is this horse is very, very weak in the back. I'm not able to get him to stretch into the contact as much as I would like him to do, because the back is so completely frozen, kind of, you might say. He's not able to lift me up at all, so he's not able to take contact and stretch. So what I'm going to do here is get off of the horse and go back to the work in hand. So through the work in hand, I've taught the horse to stretch into the contact without the weight. Then I get back on the horse, and we'll find that it will be much easier because I've explained what I want the horse to do from the ground. Now you see the horse beginning to stretch into the contact, and he's found his top line. Now notice when he comes around here, once he's into the stretch, once again, look at how that has affected the gait of the horse. Look how his walk now has begun to swing forward and much more active. Oh, he's still too short in the neck here. He's going to want to stretch out here in a little bit more in just a moment. So I put him a little bit of shoulder in as I get him to lift up the back. When you see me go back with my shoulders, what I'm doing is tightening my abdominal muscles and lifting my seat in the saddle a little bit. I'm actually giving the horse room. We want the horse to come up and lift through the back. So if I press straight down through the back of the horse, it's going to be very difficult. Once again, look how weak this horse's is. You come around, you can see clearly behind the saddle how dropped his back is through the loin. That should all be well filled out through there for a horse that, in order to carry weight. So now we see he's found that nice big stretch. Look how different the length of the neck looks once he finds that open door. Once again, I didn't have to fight him into this. Once he began to discover the physical posture that allowed him to carry me more comfortably, he was more than happy to do it. There, now notice the walk has become more swinging. The whole length of the neck now is lengthening out from the shoulder. This horse has been held up in the neck his whole life. It has no idea he even has these back muscles. So now as I start into the trot, I'm able to keep him swinging over his back pretty well. He's going to go through the same little process a little bit here, but his trot is so much better now. I want you to go back and compare the trot he had in the beginning before I work that walk. Notice his back legs aren't dragging any longer. And I'll go through the same process here in the trot as I did in the walk to get him out longer and stretching. Now some horses, you simply can't do it all in the first day. So I'm experimenting to see how far we can get with this horse, and I think we can get as far as the stretch in the trot. She's starting to do quite nicely now, and once again, keep watching how this position changes the horse's gaits, how it lets the hind leg swing through and underneath the body. It lets his back free up, and you'll see that the horse will begin to bend, as opposed to the very stumpy looking, very shortened stride that he had in the beginning. He's even starting to bend a little bit. Remember once again that lateral bend is dependent on longitudinal bend, that is the bend upwards in the back. The horse must lift upwards in the back before he can bend on the side, so to speak, because the back has to lift up and free those vertebrae. So you can see this horse that looked quite clunky in the beginning of this session. We can see he's beginning to swing over his back, and he's beginning to look much more like, and he's just looking a lot freer in general. Nice big stride. So I bring him back to the walk, let him stretch. I'm very happy with that. Come back to the stretch again. Once again, notice that I didn't expect him to maintain that for very long. People often make the mistake of getting something good out of a horse and then they keep doing it over and over again. So now we're going to put Sergio back on so that he can feel that. He was quite thrilled at the end of this lesson, I believe. He was able to take this horse that had seemingly no feeling in its mouth at all, and by the end of it he was riding it very softly and in the correct frame with correct contact. So now he's beginning to use his back a little more like I did, coming behind the motion a little bit at times, lifting up when he needs to, sending the horse through and lightening his seat and getting the horse to come up through the back. And he's experimenting with the contact with the reins there. But he's getting him to do that quite nicely now, stretching him deep into the contact. Something he had never felt on this horse before. When we first get this out of a horse, it will feel like the horse is taking off, like you're sitting on a surfboard almost, and you're being carried forward over the ground. It's a wonderful feeling, rather than being drug along, like you're sitting in a bucket being drug along behind something. It's a lovely feeling of being carried. So now he's going to try to apply the same thing in the trot, and we see he's able to do that quite nicely. Once again, I highly recommend, after you watch this part, that we look at the other where we began and see the change in the horse's gaits. Very nice. And even though he's coming up and down a little bit in the head and neck as Sergio is trying to find the correct contact, the horse is continuing to move in a good working trot, that is swinging nicely over his back, even when he's not stretched as far as I might like him to be, as he's starting to be there. But it's very normal, and you can see how Sergio is dropping the contact once in a while. So once again, the hardest thing is riding is really learning to maintain correct contact. That is the weight of the rein when the horse is correct, and only slightly more than that when you need to adjust the horse's frame a little bit, as opposed to the idea of holding constantly against the mouth of the horse, which only exhausts the rider and the horse and make the horse very, very difficult for anyone but someone who's very, very strong and been taught to ride in that kind of hard fashion. Very nice. Now he's having a nice swinging walk, stretching over his back. And now Sergio is able to sit up straight. So once again, don't confuse when you see us do some of these different things position-wise. Remember that that's schooling riding. When the horse is correct, then we will be in a correct equitation position. So we're segueing now to the third day of the clinic. And the third day, we realized after the first couple of days of work with this horse that he was really quite weak in the back, and it's quite difficult for the horse to carry weight. So we've stepped back and we're teaching Sergio how to lunge the horse. Correct lunging to get the horse stretching over its back and into the contact and strengthen those muscles before we put the weight of the rider up there. So you can even see this horse, even on the lunge line, he struggles quite a bit to be able to accept the contact with the bridle. So we're going to wait for that to happen a little bit, get him moving forward, get him stretching into the contact a little more. And once he does that over a couple of weeks' time, it'll take a week or so to get this horse where he would come out and stretch right into the contact, but he will by the end of this session here today. He'll begin to stretch in it like that as you see him beginning to seek contact. And that will help him loosen up for the next phase of the training. So after we've lunged the horse, we're going to do the next step in the foundational exercises of teaching the horse to work in hand. This teaches the horse to move away from the inside leg and into the outside rein, the most basic foundational skill the horse must possess in order to be rideable. So he knows this horse has never done this before, so he's trying to back away from me. So you notice how I just follow along with him. I don't get excited. I don't whip him or anything of the sort. I just wait till he gets tired of moving backwards, and then I move into the position I want to be in. Most horses don't like to back up for very long. So like with this one, he quickly got tired of that, and once he realized I was not any threat to him, he let me come around to the position I want and begin to ask him to move off of my leg, which is the whip in this case when we're working in hand. So I have to hold my ground so I can just make him, if I have to make him just go around me like that. There we go. So the same thing applies here. You'll notice in the work in hand, I'm never letting the horse hold against my hands. If you try to do that doing work in hand, you certainly wouldn't last very long, as the horse would just drag you off of your feet. That's why this correct weight contact is so important, even to things like learning the piaffe and passage. Because if we have a horse that has always gone by pulling on the reins, well, it becomes very, very difficult to do things like piaffe and passage, especially from the ground without the horse trying to drag you off. So here you can see him beginning to cross over better. And once again, there's a little less bend in the neck. Remember, we never want more bend in the neck than in the middle of the body. So you can hear for a moment here he's bending too much in the neck to the inside. But you'll see me continually trying to straighten that out, loosening the inside rein, taking a little more contact with the outside rein as he begins to yield to the bridle a little bit here. I just stay with him, not making too many demands so he can't get away. There we go. Notice how I keep my body face somewhat to the front when I'm doing this. There he goes. Now he's beginning to understand a little better. So I'm going to reward him for that. So now I'm going to let Sergio come in and try the same thing. So important, what I'm showing him here is that he has to keep his palms up on both hands. Notice I'm having used the whip right where the leg would normally be. There. There, and the horse understands it. There, now he's starting to bend less in the neck. Beautiful right there, and we have a very nice leg yield. We'd like it to be in a bigger step, but that will start to open up in a moment once he starts to understand more what he wants him to do. But for a first attempt at that, that was very good. So notice he's going to come back to just letting him stretch now in just a moment. There, now he's beginning to get more step over. That's what we want to see. Remember, we want the step to be 50% to the front, 50% to the side. So it's a fault to be too much to the side, as much as it is to be only just running straight forward with barely any movement at all. So once the horse stopped on him there for a moment, he just lightened his hands once again. Ask him to step away from that whip on the inside. There, now you can see how his neck, in the beginning, when we started this, you could see how the horse just became rigid and just was ready to brace his whole body against you. But now he's beginning to soften up, stepping over, and he's going to get the stretch now here in just a moment. There we go. Very nice. And then we can see how the walk begins to open up as the horse begins to stretch the neck forward and into the contact. Now he's going to change and do the same thing on the other side, of course. Got a nice big step. Now he's going to begin the leg yield. Now you can see in this direction the horse kind of wants to run around him a little bit in a circle, so he has to stop him a little with the outside rein. On the other side, the horse wanted to push into him, so he had to be a little more active with the whip. They're usually a little different from side to side. There he goes, and he gets him to yield. And the horse begins to follow the contact down. Like that. As you saw me do in the beginning, this horse it would have taken, or it might not have been possible at all, but I felt when I first got on him, he was so rigid that it was going to be a struggle for the horse to be able to do it. So how much better to get off of the horse, teach it to him from the ground, and then start again. So we can see now that we have our rider back up how much improved the walk is. So after the lunging and the work in hand, we now have a horse that we can get on and get it swinging over its back and stretching into the contact right from the beginning of the workout, which will make our workout much more effective in the long run. Remember, every step we take with the horse hollow, basically puts us in the wrong direction of where we want to be. So the sooner we can get the horse working over its back and keep it there, the sooner we're going to get to where we want to be, which is a trained horse. So I want to thank everybody here in Guadalajara. We had a wonderful time. I want to thank Sergio for being our model today and doing such a wonderful job with his horse. We found him to be just a wonderful student and somebody who really cared about his horses. So we'll see you all next time. This is Will Faber coming to you from Guadalajara.